After UFC Fight Night Tampa, I looked around at the welterweight division. I saw there's no matchups here. I know, Colby Covington just got destroyed by Joaquin Buckley, but nothing else has been announced. That's it for the welterweight division. So I thought, what better to do than match up all of these guys? Now, we're going to start off with Bilal Muhammad, and we're going to finish off with either Wonderboy or Gilbert Burns. Um, so what better to do than just get straight into it? Now, we're also going to, quick disclaimer, Joaquin Buckley is still ninth at the time of recording this, but I would say I think he's going to move up to about sixth or fifth. So we're basically going to go off that ranking for this video. Starting off with Bilal Muhammad. Bilal, Shavkat Ragmanov is the guy he's going to be fighting. This is the fight that makes the most sense. Realistically, they were going to fight anyway, and then Bilal stubbed his pinky toe, and said he couldn't do the fight. So, what can we do? But in all seriousness, I think Bilal probably wins this. Shavkat Ragmanov pulled off. I said this before the fight that before as he got matched up to Bilal Muhammad, that Shavkat hasn't fought any top 5 opponents, so he might lose because he might be in for a shock. Well, believe it or not, because that fight got cancelled, he fought a genuine. I wouldn't say I know Ian Gary isn't top 5, but he's a future top 5 opponent, and he's probably better than half the people in the top 5. And then he looked really mid and went and won 3 rounds to 2 against him and almost got finished by him. So, and if Ian Gary isn't vegan, he gets the rear naked choke in the last round. So realistically, he looked very mid against Ian Gary, and his entire branding What have I done? His entire branding revolves around him finishing his opponent, and he goes and gets a decision. That's probably the worst thing that could even happen for this entire title fight, but it's the best thing that could happen for my picks because I'm now very confident in Bilal Muhammad getting the job done. Right? We're now going to move on to Leon Edwards, which I flashed a second ago because I'm a moron. Leon Edwards, number 1 contender, everyone. I don't know why they put the champion as the number 1 contender and he has to stay there for the next 3 years, regardless whether he fights or not. Doesn't make any sense to me. We've had that with Kamaru Usman. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I think he should fight Joaquin Buckley at UFC Fight Night London. Now, we have had a few fights for UFC Fight Night London, but they haven't been the main or co-main event, luckily. This should be in the main event, and I feel like in terms of timing-wise, Joaquin Buckley works against Leon Edwards. However, he did call out Colby Covington. Not Colby, what that? He fought Colby. He called out Kamaru Usman at UFC Fight Night Tampa after his fight with Covington. So he called out 3 people, actually. Edwards was one of them. He called out Colby and he called out Bilal. Bilal got some cheers. Kamaru got some cheers. And Edwards got barely no cheers because he's a boring fighter and pretty much has no personality at all in terms of like we say, like Colby, we can follow him and he's got fan base because he's just very polarizing and he plays a character. Well, Leon Edwards has got none of that. And he's also not very exciting as a fighter either. So it's kind of like, I don't mind Leon Edwards. He's from England, we got that little British connection, but it's kind of, he doesn't really have the makings of a star. Now he had a chance to turn around that head kick, brav, but he didn't really do it. He did it for a few months, and then he pulled off a stinker against Colby Covington. So, but I think this fight, UFC Fight Night London, is very important. You could argue Sean Brady could swap out this place and then Joaquin Buckley fights Kamaru Usman, but I don't see that happening because I'm going to pair up Kamaru Usman with a different guy in a second, which I think he's already been booked against, but they just haven't made it official and announced to everyone, said, "What's going on, fight fans?" So, which means we're going to match up not Colby. Why do I keep saying Colby Covington? It's really annoying. Kamaru Usman rocking the green and black, like Nigeria, the green and black background. Jack Della Maddalena, probably going to happen in February, if this does happen, which it probably is. Feature fight on that card. It's arguably better than the co-main event of the card, but I can see this 100% happening on the February card. They're going to announce it, hopefully. If not, then JDM will not be fighting this card, and it could probably be JDM versus Edwards, and then you do Usman versus Buckley, which I could also see happening as well. So these two are interchangeable. Depends on what, because I feel like JDM could make it Edwards fight interesting, and the Buckley Usman fight would be interesting anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But this fight's been on the talks for when? Since like September, So hopefully Usman actually wants to fight. Usman hasn't had a fight at welterweight in 2 years, right? And that fight was a loss to Leon Edwards where he got battered. So, and then the time before that was a head kick. He hasn't won in welterweight in like 2.5 years as well. So, he needs it, and somehow he's number 3. This is the problem. This problem I got with the rankings and the champions just staying high up in the rankings for some reason. If they don't fight, drop them down the rankings. Usman has been holding Usman and Edwards have been holding that top 2 spots for the past few months. Usman's been holding the number 1 spot for the past 2 years, and he hasn't even fought. I know he fought in Chimaev, but that's at middleweight. So absolutely ridiculous. I think Usman should at least be outside the top 5, maybe not outside the top 5, but like lower down. You get what I mean? Because otherwise, we have guys who should be in the. Ian Gary should be in the top 5, but he's not because we have Usman and Edwards hogging the top 2 spots. You get what I mean? So, Kamaru Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena, probably in February. Let's move on to the next fight, which is Ian Gary rocking the purple background. Ian Gary obviously lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov. Very close fight. Stock went up a little bit. Well, it went up quite a bit, to be fair, because he's first guy to take Shavkat to a decision. But I think we should put him up against Colby Covington. He just fought at UFC Fight Night Tampa. I want to see Covington trash talk Ian Gary because it'll be a fun fight to watch. Now, obviously, Covington's been ducking Ian Gary. He's going quack, quack, and, running away from a fight at 170 with Ian Gary. And I probably can't see this fight happening again. And there are probably better matchups to give Ian Gary than Colby Covington coming off of a loss. However, Colby Covington has historically been given good matchups. And if he beats Ian Gary, he's back in the title picture, even after he got whooped by Buckley. So that's what's in it for Colby. So I don't know. I hope this matchup happens. I just want to see a press conference between these two guys. It would be fun. Stick on a pay-per-view, probably UFC 314 or maybe even 313. Depends when these guys want to come back. I'm down. You get what I mean? But great fight. I really do like this matchup. Colby will probably lose again to Ian Gary, I won't lie, and he drops down and becomes... We need to start throwing these guys to the wolves. These guys are 35, 36 years old. Like Colby Covington, like Kamaru Usman, probably a little bit Leon Edwards as well, where they don't fight. They just kind of hog the ranking spots. They're old. They don't really add much to the company anymore. They're kind of we need to start giving you these younger contenders, which is where I've got to with the next one, or the next two even, which I'm going to explain pretty well. So the next one is Sean Brady, and this was a toss-up, because if you look at who we've matched up so far, they're all above Sean Brady. They're all above Sean Brady, right? Then there's not really many people we can give Sean Brady in terms of a quality matchup. So I had 2 fights in mind. Fight number 1 was him versus Carlos Prates, and fight number 2 was him versus Micah Morales. I've decided to go with Carlos Prates because, and then I'm also going to do one more here as well, because I've decided to put Morales next to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, right? This is not the end of the video. I've got another matchup to do after this, but I'll explain these two first. I picked Prates for the jump up mainly because he's a bigger name for one, and he's much older than Morales. Morales is, if you don't know, a 17-0 25-year-old prospect in the welterweight division. He is ranked, I think he's ranked 13th. Prates is 14th. Prates is 31 years old, or he could be 32 by the time I'm recording this. I'm not sure. I think he was 31. Prates has got a lot less time to be at the top compared to Morales. So Prates getting the jump up makes more sense over Morales, while Morales can like try and work his way up a little bit more. As well as that, Prates, I was going to say Morales. Prates is a bigger name than Morales, right? Prates is he fights at the Fighting Nerds gym. More people know who he is than Morales. Morales and Prates both have knockout wins over Magny. Morales did it first, but Prates got more backing for it because he's that guy, you know? Like because he's more popular than Morales. And I think a win for Morales over Wonderboy does the same for him as a win over Sean Brady in terms of like popularity and stock. But one would put him so much higher than the other one to the point where it's kind of like I don't think he hasn't quite got the hype to justify being fourth in the division. Prates does. So that's my very limited thinking behind it. But realistically, I don't see these fights happening. Maybe Prates giving Sean Brady because they were going to give Prates a fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov, to be fair, if he was fit to go, but he wasn't. He'd broken his foot. Next up, Gilbert Burns. This is the last one we're going to do in this video. I put him up against Jeff Neal. Gilbert Burns is coming off of 3 consecutive losses. He hasn't fought Jeff Neal yet, and Jeff Neal wants to jump up in rankings after his win against RDA. It was a pretty easy win against RDA. I know RDA did tear his ACL in that fight, but you know he got knocked down. He was dropped on the floor. He was gonna lose that fight regardless. And Jeff Neal was just putting it on him. So this fight makes sense, in my opinion, and that's pretty much it for the entire video. My favorite fight from this video that I've matched up is probably Ian Gary versus Colby Covington, just because of the trash talk behind it. But that probably won't even happen, and neither will this fight. Neither will even half the fights on here, because none of these guys want to fight more than once a year, which is very nice. But that's it for this video. I'm going to go to sleep. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.